How could a father so cruelly turn his family's small garden into a grave? On the afternoon of November 15, 2024, the Laurelhurst neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, was shrouded in the November chill. Wooden houses with white picket fences and manicured gardens created a picture of suburban tranquility. But at 4:17 p.m., a hired gardener unearthed a horrifying secret in the garden of 1427 Maple Street. Beneath the damp soil next to fake pet gravestones, police found the bodies of Sarah Mitchell, 36, and her two children, Emily, 10, and Lucas, 7, wrapped in nylon bags. The garden where the children once played was now a haunting crime scene. Police cordoned off the house patrol car lights flashing in the evening mist. Laurelhurst, with its tree-lined streets, had never witnessed such a tragedy. Sarah, an interior designer, was beloved for her warmth. Emily and Lucas, with their bright smiles, often rode their bikes around the neighborhood. Calvin Mitchell, 40, the father and an accountant, always seemed devoted, but now he stood in front of the house expressionless as the bodies were removed. Portland newspapers screamed headlines, "Horror in Laurelhurst family buried under fake headstones." Social media exploded. A neighbor wrote, "I saw the kids last week. How could this happen?" Another asked, "What did Calvin do?" Rumors spread quickly, family conflict, debt, or a dark secret. No one believed the kind father was the culprit. Police Chief William Hayes, a white man with salt and pepper hair, announced to reporters, "We will get to the bottom of this." But he knew the case was complex. No signs of forced entry, no bloodstains in the house. Only the fake headstones engraved with Buddy and Mittens concealed the bodies. The smell of damp earth and decaying leaves wafted through the garden, mixed with horror. The truth, like a cold Portland wind, was waiting to be uncovered. Sarah Mitchell, 36, was the heart of the Laurelhurst neighborhood in Portland. An interior designer, she was known for her talent in transforming simple houses into cozy homes. With her curly brown hair and radiant smile, Sarah always radiated warmth. Her two children, Emily, 10, who loved to draw, and Lucas, 7, who enjoyed building sandcastles, were her joy. Neighbors often saw the three of them cycling down Maple Street, laughing under the autumn sun. Calvin Mitchell, 40. A black man, was an accountant at a small firm. He was polite, often helping neighbors fix cars or mow lawns. Calvin was a model father, said Mrs. Helen Carter, a neighbor. But since the summer of 2024, he had become quiet, working late into the night, his eyes shadowed. Sarah confided in Helen. "Calvin's stressed about work, but he won't talk about it." The house at 1427 Maple Street was a two-story wooden house with a large garden in the back. Sarah grew roses and apple trees. Emily and Lucas built forts from old wood. Recently, Calvin had been digging in the garden, saying he was making a memorial for lost pets, erecting headstones engraved with Buddy and Mittens. Neighbors like Mr. Tom Reynolds found it odd, but didn't suspect anything. On November 10, 2024, Sarah took Lucas to soccer practice, wearing a blue sweater, waving goodbye to neighbors. Emily stayed home drawing. Calvin came home early, telling Helen he needed to clean up the garden. That night, the lights at the Mitchell house stayed on late, but no one heard anything unusual. Neighbors thought the family was watching a movie. Abnormal signs began to appear. Sarah stopped replying to neighbor group texts. Emily and Lucas were absent from school for 2 days, and Calvin reported the whole family had the flu. Lisa Grant, Sarah's friend, grew worried when her calls went unanswered. Calvin said Sarah was sleeping, Lisa recounted. No one noticed the smell of freshly dug earth or Calvin's evasive gaze. Laurelhurst remained peaceful, unaware of the tragedy awaiting. On November 10, 2024, at 7:30 p.m., the house at 1427 Maple Street, Portland, was bathed in warm yellow light. Sarah Mitchell, 36, had just returned after taking Lucas to soccer practice. She was preparing dinner in the kitchen, the smell of roasted meat wafting through the air. Emily, 10, sat drawing at the dining table, while Lucas, 7, played with building blocks in the living room. Calvin Mitchell, 40, entered the house at 7:45 p.m. holding a shovel, saying he had just cleaned up the garden. No one noticed the cold look in his eyes. At 8:15 p.m., Sarah argued with Calvin in the upstairs bedroom. Her voice was sharp but controlled. "Calvin, you can't just stay silent forever. What's going on?" Neighbors didn't hear as the windows were closed and the autumn wind through the oak trees drowned out all sounds. Calvin didn't respond, just tightened his fists. At 8:20 p.m., a heavy thud echoed from the bedroom. Sarah fell to the floor, blood flowing from her head, after a blow with a metal lamp base. She was no longer moving. At 8:30 p.m., Calvin, breathing heavily, dragged Sarah's body down to the basement, wrapping it in nylon bags taken from the storage room. He acted quickly, as if he had planned it. At 8:45 p.m., he went upstairs, entering Emily's room. She was drawing, looking up. "Dad, where's Mom?" Calvin silently pressed a pillow over Emily's face, holding it tightly until she stopped struggling. Lucas, in the living room, heard footsteps and ran over asking, "Dad, where's Sis?" Calvin repeated the act using a pillow on the boy. Both children, just minutes apart, lay motionless. At 9:00 p.m., Calvin dragged Emily's and Lucas's bodies down to the basement, placing them next to their mother. He took a shovel and went to the backyard where he had already dug 3 small holes the week before under the guise of a pet memorial. Under the faint moonlight, he buried each body carefully, covering them with soil, placing the fake headstones engraved with Buddy and Mittens on top. The smell of damp earth and decaying leaves concealed the scent of death. At 11:00 p.m., the Mitchell house was silent. Calvin wiped the lamp base clean, put it back in its place, and tidied the basement. No bloodstains, no signs of struggle. He turned on the TV, letting the sound of a movie play, pretending everything was normal. On the morning of November 15th, the hired gardener, Mr. Javier Ruiz, digging to plant new trees, discovered the bodies. He screamed, ran into the street, and called the police. When Police Chief William Hayes's team arrived, the scene was frozen, 3 bodies underground, next to fake headstones, and Calvin standing there expressionless. Hayes muttered, "My God, what is this?" On the morning of November 16th, 2024, the Laurelhurst neighborhood in Portland was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Lisa Grant, 38. Sarah Mitchell's close friend couldn't sleep after hearing the news about the Mitchell family. She sat in her small kitchen, hugging a cold cup of tea, her eyes red-rimmed. Lisa, a bank employee, was always close to Sarah, frequently visiting the house at 1427 Maple Street. "Sarah was the most optimistic person I knew," she told her husband, her voice trembling. But a small detail made her uneasy, the unanswered call on the evening of November 10th. Lisa recalled the moment. She called Sarah at 8:10 p.m. to ask about weekend plans, but only heard ringing. She texted with no response. The next day, Calvin called back saying Sarah had the flu and the whole family was resting. Lisa intended to visit, but Calvin refused, his voice cold. "It's not a good time right now." What bothered Lisa was another detail. Calvin had asked her how to make pet memorial headstones a few weeks prior, even though the Mitchells didn't have any pets. Lisa initially hesitated to speak up, afraid of bothering the police. Neighbors in Laurelhurst, accustomed to their privacy, avoided interfering in others' affairs. But the image of Emily and Lucas' children she considered her nieces and nephews haunted her. She couldn't remain silent about the fake headstones in the garden mentioned by the press as the place where the bodies were hidden. At 9:30 a.m., Lisa went to the East Portland Police Station and met with Police Chief William Hayes. Trembling, she recounted the unanswered call and Calvin's strange question about the memorial headstones. "I'm not sure, but Calvin, he's been acting strange these past few months. I saw him digging in the garden late at night. I just thought he was gardening." Lisa hesitated, worried she might be mistaken. "I just want to help Sarah and the children," she said, her eyes welling up. Lisa's testimony was a turning point. Hayes, with sharp eyes, took careful notes. "You did the right thing," he said, his voice low. Lisa left the station, her heart heavy, fearing alienation from neighbors. Meanwhile, police conducted further checks. A neighbor's security camera recorded Calvin digging at 1:00 a.m. on November 11th, holding a shovel, his face tense. Another clue, dirt stains on the basement carpet of the Mitchell house, not completely cleaned. Police began to focus on Calvin, and the horrifying secret in the Maple Street garden gradually came to light. On November 17, 2024, the East Portland Police Station was filled with tension. Police Chief William Hayes, a white man with over 20 years of experience, led the investigation. Lisa Grant's testimony had made Calvin Mitchell, 40, a black man, the focus of suspicion. Hayes summoned Calvin for questioning at 10:00 a.m. Calvin entered the room, calm in demeanor, but avoiding eye contact. "I haven't done anything wrong," he said, his voice even. The neighbor's security camera was the first clue. The image of Calvin digging at 1:00 a.m. on November 11th, holding a shovel, made Hayes suspicious. The forensics team examined the Mitchell house basement, discovering dirt mixed with small bloodstains on the carpet, matching Sarah's blood type. The weapon, a metal lamp base, was found in the bedroom, wiped clean, but still bearing Sarah's DNA. Hayes asked, "Your wife's blood on the carpet, DNA on the lamp base. How do you explain this?" Calvin shook his head. "I don't know anything." The autopsy showed Sarah died from a severe head injury from a blunt force trauma. Emily and Lucas died of asphyxiation with no other signs of violence. The bodies were buried in nylon bags, indicating careful preparation. Hayes confronted him. "You dug the holes before they died, placed fake headstones to conceal. This was a plan, wasn't it?" Calvin was silent, his hands trembling slightly. After 2 hours of questioning, he bowed his head. His voice choked. "I can't take it anymore. It's all my fault." Calvin confessed that on the evening of November 10th, Sarah discovered he had embezzled money from his company and threatened to report him to the police. During the argument, he hit her with the lamp base, not intending to kill her. In a panic, he decided to cover up by killing Emily and Lucas to protect the secret. "I didn't want them to grow up without a mother," he said, his eyes red. He had dug the holes beforehand, planning to flee, but didn't expect the gardener to discover them so soon. Hayes read him his Miranda rights. "You have the right to remain silent." Calvin was arrested, charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The news shocked Laurelhurst. A father killing his whole family. "It's horrifying," a neighbor said. Police confirmed Calvin acted alone through camera footage and phone records. But the question still lingered: what made a seemingly model father commit such a cruel act against his own family? On June 10, 2025, the courtroom at the Multnomah County Courthouse, Portland, was packed. Calvin Mitchell, charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, stood before the judge, his eyes vacant. The trial lasted 7 weeks with intense arguments. The prosecutor emphasized the evidence, Sarah's blood on the carpet, DNA on the lamp base, and Calvin's confession. The defense argued he acted in a panic, pushed to the brink by financial pressure. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury found Calvin guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Sarah's family, sitting in the front row, cried silently. Sarah's mother, Mrs. Ellen Harper, clutched a photo of the Mitchell family from a beach trip, where Emily and Lucas smiled brightly. "My daughter and grandchildren didn't deserve to die," she said, her voice choked. Mrs. Ellen received Sarah's silver necklace found in the nylon bag as a last keepsake. The family decided to leave Portland, unable to bear the painful memories. The case shook Laurelhurst. The house at 1427 Maple Street, once filled with laughter, was now abandoned, the garden a place to avoid. Residents demanded increased neighborhood security and questioned why no one noticed the abnormal signs sooner. A local law named Mitchell's Law, was proposed requiring schools to report student absences without reason after more than 2 days immediately. Lisa Grant, who provided key testimony, was thanked by the community, but also faced pressure. Some neighbors distanced themselves from her, saying she dug into private matters. Lisa remained firm. "I did it for Sarah and the children." Chamba. She participated in a memorial service at Laurelhurst Park where dozens of people placed roses, Sarah's favorite flower, before a plaque engraved with the names of the mother and her 2 children. "They were the light of our neighborhood," someone said. The Portland community held a prayer vigil lighting candles in memory of Sarah Emily and Lucas. But the case left a wound that was hard to heal. Residents began to doubt the safety of their peaceful neighborhood. "If someone like Calvin can do this who can be trusted," a resident wrote online. The story of the Mitchell family became a cautionary tale. Sometimes the harm doesn't come from strangers, but from those closest to you. Justice was served, but the pain remains haunting. Laurelhurst, with its tree-lined streets, is no longer the same. The most terrifying thing is that secrets can be hidden right next door beneath a perfect facade.